Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Awakening with me, Raza Kazim. Zakat is considered to be an essential part of Islamic practice. In the Quran, it is mentioned with prayers. So why is zakat so significant in Islam?
Zakat is compulsory for all Muslims, and God has given them orders regarding it in many verses of the Quran. This mention of zakat in the Quran occurs in some 32 verses. In most of them, it is coupled with prayers, and this emphasizes the importance which the Quran places upon zakat. For example, in chapter 2, verse 110 in the Quran, it is said, "And be stead in prayer and regular in charity, and whatever good ye send forth for your souls before you, ye shall find it with God. For God sees well what you do." This week we went out and asked, how significant is zakat in Islam?
The zakat is important because it's good for everybody to give something for the poor, which are not able to do anything or earn the money. So it's to support them, enjoy with the Eid and everything, and then let them support with us, join together. And that's the way we do the zakat. That's the main idea. Everybody should give zakat to help the poor who are disabled or anything, whatever the reason. Whether they can't work or anything for some reason.
Well, as Muslims, we need to look out for each other. So when a Muslim brother is suffering and let's say he doesn't have food to eat for dinner, so we have to help him by giving him food or money to buy food. For example, there's a hadith that you cannot go to sleep while your neighbor is hungry. So this shows that the importance that we need to give zakat to our Muslim brothers.
To address these issues, we have our esteemed guest, Professor Tariq Ramadan. Welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I wanted to start off by asking, what is zakat and what is the Quranic definition of zakat?
Yes, it's an important concept that, as you mentioned in your introduction, it's connected and always mentioned with salah, with prayers. And in English, very often we have translations that are not very accurate and not very precise when it comes to almsgiving, for example. That's not exactly this. Zakat, in fact, has 3 dimensions. And we can translate all these dimensions into the fact that it's a social purifying tax. It's a tax because it's an obligation. You have to pay it, and you have to pay it out of your money when you have a specific amount of money that you are beyond what is the basic necessity. That's how you have to pay this. And then purifying, why? Because there is a spiritual dimension in the way that you have to pay, that you do it for God and you do it to serve the people around you. So as much as you are purifying your heart when you pray, purifying your body when you fast, purifying your life when you go to pilgrimage or you perform pilgrimage, you are purifying your money, your havings when you give zakat. So the spiritual dimension here is essential. It comes out of your intentions in niyyah, that I'm giving this money for the sake of God to the poor people. And it's a tax because this is also something which is important in our understanding. It's the right of the poor. الذين في أموالهم حق معلوم للسائل والمحروم, meaning those who knows that within their money, within their goods, there are a part. This is the right of the poor that we have to pay. And the last dimension is social. Why? Because the scholars, referring to some verses in the Quran, were setting 8 categories of people to whom we can pay zakat: the poor people, the needy people, the orphans, and all this. So I would say here that we need to have this dimension in mind, because if we don't get the right definition, we confuse zakat with another word, and the other word is sadaqah. Sadaqah is charity, is you give whatever you want whenever you want. But here there is an obligation, here there is just a personal desire to help people.
Why is the concept, I mean, you've outlined some interesting definitions, and perhaps if you could explore that in answering the next question and go further, why is the concept of zakat so significant in Islam? It's been mentioned so many times in the Quran.
Yes, in fact, we know that Islam is based on 5 practical pillars. The third one, after the Shahada, the testimony that there is one God and the messenger, peace be upon him, is the last messenger, and he is the messenger of God. There is prayers, and then close to this, straight after this, that we have to pay zakat. And in fact, it helps us to understand the comprehensive dimension of the Islamic teachings. Praying, it's between you and God. Zakat is you and God, God and yourself and humanity. So it's the horizontal dimension of Islam, that you have to care about the people around you. So much so that wherever you go, you have to pray. But wherever you go, you have to pay zakat. And what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to somebody that he sent to a specific tribe during the revelation process, he said, tell them, this is تُؤْخَذْ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ إِلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. This has to be taken from the rich people to their poor people. Meaning what? You have to pay zakat where you live. So you have to care about the people around you. It's not you take zakat and you send it there. No, you can do this with sadaqah. You can do this with the money that you want. Just send it back to Pakistan, Egypt, whatever. But zakat, the priority is where you live. So it gives you a sense, which is so important, that you are rooted somewhere, that you belong to the place where you live. So it's essential because it adds to this vertical dimension, this connection to God, a connection to humanity around you. And this is also something that we have to see and to remind Muslims that the starting point of the revelation to come close to God is always to serve the poor people. And zakat is this caring. It's to look after the poor people, to look after the orphans. The Prophet, peace be upon him, himself was an orphan and he was poor. So our model is sending us a message: you will never come close to God if you are not close to the poor people. And what is teaching you this? Is zakat as this third practical pillar of your religion. And when tribes in the south, after the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away, were saying, oh, we are going to pray, but we don't want to pay zakat, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, I'm going to fight anyone who is going to try to differentiate between salah and zakat. You have to do both, because these are 2 obligations, and this is the right of the poor over your money.
I mean, that particular example, there is some contention around that particular issue, but if we can just move on, when should the zakat be paid and who should pay it? I mean, you talked about the rich paying it and so on, but could you elaborate on that?
No, who has to pay? As soon as you have enough money to cover your, and this is also has to be decided depending on the space and the time, because it's not something that it's forever the same. So when you have the basic necessity that you can eat and drink, and then you are beyond this, so you have to take a percentage of what you have. It could be the money, it could be even your agriculture, because this is where the people, the way they were living at that time, and then you have to pay. When you are mature, that mukallaf is beyond the age of reason, and then that you have to pay the money if you are a man, if you are a woman, and if you have the money, you have to do
when you reach puberty is what you're referring to.
Yes, exactly. The age of reason is puberty, but once again, it's always something that it's not always clear when it starts and when you have to be involved. But once again, it's something which is for us clear that with the money that you have, you pay the zakat not only on the profit, it's on all the money that you have, and you have to do this once a year. So you have to calculate every year what you have, And in fact, the philosophy behind this, that you have to pay on all what you have, makes it clear that you cannot just rely on what you have and say, okay, I will keep the money. Because if you do this, year after year, you have to pay 2.5% of the money. It's going to go away. So you have to be involved in your wealth in order to produce something, and not to rely on what you have as if you can rely on interest and not pay zakat. You cannot rely on interest and you have to pay zakat. So you better work with the money you have.
And one of the things, I want a little bit more elaboration. You mentioned it before, that zakat and salah is mentioned together. What is the significance of that? And it's been mentioned together a number of times. Does this perhaps make these two things more important than the others? And it was interesting that you talked about the horizontal relationship and the vertical relationship. You know, how can you elaborate?
No, they are, you know, the 5 pillars are essential. So they are all at the same level. The fact that we are fasting and the fact that we are performing pilgrimage is very important, once in our life and once a year. Zakat and salah, yes, they are. Salah is the highest level, and even for that, the Prophet, peace be upon him, had to go close to God to get this obligation and to perform. But what we need to understand is that this awareness that we are close to God should be connected to our awareness that we are close to humanity and human beings. And as much as we don't see God and that we worship Him, it opens our heart. And with this open heart, you have to come to humanity and to look at the people nobody is looking at. Nobody is caring, because poverty is not perceived as useful within the society. It might be not financially useful, it's a spiritual necessity for you to care about the poor. And around the mosque of the Prophet, peace be upon him, poor people were there. And it's part of our message as Muslims, care about them, and they have rights. And this is why it's important to understand that it's not almsgiving, it's a duty. Why? Because at the end, you need to understand that poor people, orphans, they have rights. They have rights over your money. They didn't have even to say thank you, because this is their right. So you have to give them back their right. So it gives you a philosophy of life which is very important, is as much as you stand up to pray, you look at the equal dignity of human being. And you understand that you are able to pray, you should give the people around you the freedom, the dignity, and the status that is helping them to pray and to be dignified human beings.
This is quite interesting, because when we look at let's say the tax system, and you know that, we have to give to the poor, the social services and so on and so forth within, let's say, the UK context or other Western context, it's quite different. It's what you're talking about, that it is the right of the poor, not just simply that, the rich are paying back, as it were, and giving something out. There is more to it.
Yes.
There's a lot of tension between, a lot of difference, if you like, between the two kind of ways of thinking about this.
Yes, completely. And from an Islamic perspective, once again, we need to be involved in sadaqat, which is this giving money for the sake of charity. But there is something which is embedded in the Islamic teaching, which has to do with this. It's even deeper than that. It's, I can't purify or use even my goods and what I have, my wealth, if I don't understand that I have to purify this. I have to purify this. To purify means to make it spiritually useful and spiritually available and spiritually valued. That's a very important thing. It's a way of, it's a concept of life that you have here, and it comes through the way you deal with the poor, to the point that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was not only trying to serve the poor out of charity. Understanding this principle of Islam is also nurturing in your heart a sense of love towards the poor people. You know why? Because they are the way through which you are going to go towards your own salvation. They are your way. As much as your parents could be, the poor around you. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, was saying, Allahumma nas'aluka hubb al-masakin. Oh God, we are asking you, and in Arabic it has two meanings, to be loved by the poor and to love the poor people. So it's not only a tax without, this commitment of the heart. It's exactly the way you pray. You pray in a very disciplined way, but your heart should be open. You give the money in a very disciplined way, but your heart should be open. It's all about rules and love. But no rules without love, and no love without rules that you have to stick to in order to do this. So you can take here a very deep teaching, you can get it, and this is why the people are saying, you know what, in the UK I'm paying taxes, I'm paying this, so this is zakat. No, pay the taxes and let the state do what they have to do. You have something else to do, which is a very specific spiritual journey through the tax that you pay with a niyyah, which is the intention to serve God and to respect the poor, and then also to go and to understand that it's all about social justice, it's all about equality, it's all about caring about humanity in a way which whatever taxes you are paying in the UK, that's not it, that's not the substance of it.
We're going to come back to that. We like to keep this show as interactive as possible and really value your comments. Here is what you sent us this week.
This week we asked, why is zakat so significant in Islam? Asiya from the UK says, we have to remember that giving zakat is our duty as Muslims. We have a responsibility to look after others and try to end suffering. And Hani from Canada says, zakat is one of the foundations of Islam. It forms one of the 5 pillars. It teaches people the importance of giving and helping the destitute and downtrodden, and helps moderate negative traits such as greed and selfishness. And that's all the comments we have for this week. Don't forget to leave your views on our Facebook and Twitter page.
You talked about this idea that that zakat it must be given, and it is something that is compulsory. I note the figure that it's 2.5% in order to move towards this salvation that you're talking about, moving your psychology, the way that you're thinking about the whole thing in a completely different way. But isn't that percentage quite low?
Not really. If you think about it, depends what you have, but once again, it's realistic, and it could be a commitment, depending how much money that you have. It's if 5% of the liquidity that you have, because when it comes to other things, you might have to pay 5% and sometimes 10% when you are not involved in agriculture and you have fruits. 10% here because your effort was not within the work. And this is where you can get the philosophy of it, is that when you are involved in working, you pay less because you are working, so your effort, but still you have to think about the rights of the poor. But when it comes like this, so you have to pay more, you have even to give more. So all the philosophy of Islam here, it's at the end, if we were really committed to pay the 2.5%, it's a huge amount of money, and that this could help. Let me add something to this, which is very important, is that we have to think about the way we distribute the zakat and understand the philosophy. In fact, the right of the poor is not to be assisted. The right of the poor is to get the money for them one day to be autonomous. So we have to think about the way we spread the money around, not to have a society of assisted people, but a dynamic of autonomization. It's to help them to be autonomous. For one day they have to pay the zakat themselves. So this is why it's very important not to give you fish, but to teach you how to fish, to help you in this project. And what does it mean? If you pay the zakat in the UK, or if you pay the zakat in Pakistan, or if you pay the zakat in Egypt or in Iran or wherever, you have to know what is the social system, what is the supporting system for poor people, and to think about the zakat as coming within this system and complementing what is already done. To do what? To help the poor people to become autonomous, to help this. So you have to support projects, you have to support schools, you have not only to give money and that's it. No, that's not the point. You need to have a whole vision of this, the system within which you are going to collect the zakat and to distribute the zakat, which unfortunately it's not done today. We are very, very amateur, very, very superficial in the way we deal with zakat. We don't understand the power of this means that you can take the money, give the money to people in order to help them to be autonomous, to get a project, a social project, a business, something that is helping them to be autonomous. And then you have a dynamic. So for this, you need to know your environment. And it has to be local. For the British Muslims, for the European Muslims, as well as for the African Muslims or the Asian Muslims, first, and this is one of the conditions, you spend the money around you. It means know your society. Know what is happening around you. You can't just care about the people in other countries or your countries of origins and forget the people who here in the UK or in Europe or in other countries are poor people. And I wrote an article once saying, one day our poor will ask, where were you? You were in my city, you were in my town, and you send the money there. I was just around the corner and you neglected me. That's not Islam. So to be rooted in our environment, it's very important.
In terms of this compulsory giving, are we limited to that compulsory giving? You talked about the relationship between zakat and sadaqah, and how does that work?
No, in fact, you can give whatever you want, but there are rules and there are obligations. You cannot escape paying the zakat. Whoever you are, wherever you are, you have to pay. So this is the right, and once again, this is, you should be committed. Now, if you want, and one point that I wanted to add to this, the great majority of the Muslim scholars are saying that the zakat, the first beneficiary are the Muslims. It's from Muslim to Muslim. Some other scholars are saying, no, it could be open to others, because we have examples where in a state of necessity, non-Muslims or people of other faiths were helped in a special setting. And when all the needs of the Muslims are covered, also this is something that you can do. So this is something which is specifically spiritual from within the community, but it could be sometimes in specific situations spent for people of other faiths. Sadaqah, it's open for all. And this is where, for example, all the people who are sometimes, are using their sadaqah to send for, in the countries of origin to help the people. No, you should be very clear on this. Keep the zakat here and give sadaqah there. So that's the priority. It's not wrong, but it's not following the priorities. And then you have to, the sadaqah could be given to Muslims, to people of other faiths, and it's open. So no limit to charity, while no avoidance of anything which has to do with zakat.
One point that within the Western context, a lot of the services that are required, people could argue, are covered by the taxes that we pay. So in that context, why is zakat still necessary to be paid?
For all what we have been saying right now, I think that once again the state is asking us to pay taxes, and this is covered. That's fine, but the spiritual dimension, the purifying dimension is not there. So this is taken from your money now with what you have and what is beyond the basic necessities you have to pay, with your heart, with your intention to please Him and to serve the poor people. So it's a tax, but it cannot be confused with other taxes, because there is this dimension of the purification and purifying tax that we have to keep. So it's a religious duty. Whatever the state is taking from you, what is left beyond what is necessary, you still have to pay the zakat for the poor people.
Thank you for that, Tariq. One of the things that has come out very strongly is that zakat has to be paid if you have the means to do so. It is necessary for you to purify your money for the sake of Allah. There is this idea Very crucial, I think, that Tariq has mentioned about that it is the right of the poor. So the way that we think about this is very, very different. And then there is this dimension that while salah, prayer, is about a vertical kind of idea about connecting with your creator, the idea of sadaqah is, the idea of zakat actually talks about looking at the horizontal aspect, looking at the created and seeing what you can actually do in terms of that connection that you can make, and it's absolutely vital that that is done. Unfortunately, the time is up for today's topic. I would like to thank Professor Tariq Ramadan for his views on this topic, and of course all of you at home for watching. Goodbye until the next time and another edition of Islamic Awakening.